What is good, guys? It's Rey-Jay back with another video, and in this one I want to break down what's going on with Tesla, SPY, Nvda, the QQQ, and a couple of other tickers. I'm going to break down what happened with Alphabet and Microsoft's earnings for today, and when Jerome Powell is going to be giving his speech for tomorrow. But before I break anything down about all this information, before I get into any more details, let me just mention a couple of things. I'm personally not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out the Webull link, which is down below and in the description. If you sign up for Webull, the link down below, and deposit any amount of money into the account, you are guaranteed up to 12 free stocks. Now, this offer ends in just 7 days, so check it out before they run out. Anyways, let's break down what's going on with the market. SPY was up about 0.75% for the day, getting a decent close and getting this little bounce as I was predicting from yesterday. But now, as we start to push up, we saw some big earnings that came out from Microsoft and Google, and what happened caused some high volatility for the markets. But I want to break down some new technicals that are developing, what's likely going to play out, and how these earnings went so far. So for Aapl, aka Google, we had these earnings that came out, and the share price reaction is quite bizarre in my opinion, and here's exactly why. So earnings per share was a beat. They did well for earnings per share. They beat on revenue. That was pretty good overall. Their YouTube advertising revenue was quite good. Their traffic acquisition costs were good as well, very close to estimations. However, what wasn't good was their Google Cloud revenue. That was a slight miss by $20 million, which is like not that crazy. And the share price ended up tanking over that. So Google is down right now. Let me just pull up the charts real quick. Google is down 6%, which it doesn't make sense because they beat on EPS and revenue. They had good earnings overall. It's just that some of the things were not as great as expected, and this led to some concerns amongst investors. This is also due to manipulation, in my opinion. So this drop is quite exaggerated. We should see Google try to rebound. It just doesn't make sense with them beating on EPS and revenue and having such a small little miss to cause such a big drop. But Microsoft is in a completely different ball game right now because Microsoft is pumping. It's up 5.6%. It's now pumping. It's almost up 6%, and it's looking quite good. Now, why is Microsoft up so much? Their profit ended up popping 27%. And looking at this specifically, you'll see that their earnings per share or EPS was a beat. They did well for EPS. They beat on revenue. And overall, their intelligent cloud segment produced $24 billion in revenue. They also saw revenue up 13% year over year. And we're expecting some decent things for Q4. Looking at this as well, you can see that their revenue from just Azure is up about 29% during the quarter. That's also pretty good from what the consensus has been. So good revenue growth, really, really nice beat on earnings, and they're continuing to improve Microsoft Cloud as time goes on. I also hope they say AI a million times. It's going to help get more investors in there. But anyways, in all seriousness, Microsoft is looking quite good. Very, very nice pop, very, very good earnings, and we're seeing the share price continuing to improve. And as a result of this balance, you could see that kind of like Google and Microsoft kind of like canceled each other out because SPY is very flat in the after hours. So is Tesla, not really moving too much. So this is very interesting to witness for the time being. But moving forward, going into tomorrow, we have a couple of earnings coming up. We have T-Mobile. We also have Hilton and just a few others in the morning. Then after the market closes for tomorrow, we have Meta and IBM announcing their earnings, so more big tech earnings. Now for tomorrow, let me just call out that the fear and greed index is becoming less fearful as we're starting to see buyers stepping in, and momentum is starting to shift in favor of the bulls more and more, at least for the short term. Now the market volatility is also becoming more normalized because the VIX is dropping, and this is a decent sign. But for tomorrow, we have Jerome Powell giving a speech later on. And what's going to happen first is 30 minutes after the market opens, we have new home sales. Nothing too crazy is coming out in the morning, but later on, we have more treasury data coming out, the treasury purchases, the 17-week bill auction, just a couple of other auctions. And then after that, when the market closes, it's going to close at its normal time. And then we're going to be listening to what Jerome Powell has to say, as the big guy is going to be giving another speech. So Powell is going to be giving a speech at 4:35 p.m. Eastern time after the stock market closes. That's going to be for tomorrow. And in my opinion, just to be very frank with you, if the market starts pumping, which I think there's a good chance of that happening, as Google should be bouncing from here. It's just way too oversold. Earnings were quite good for them. And then on top of that, for Microsoft, they had very strong earnings. This could help the market bounce tomorrow. If the market does start breaking some resistance levels and starts pushing and pushing and pushing, I'd be very careful because the market might pump approaching Jerome Powell's speech, which is going to be during the after hours, trick lots of retail investors to come in. And then after Powell gives his little speech, we have Thursday. Thursday is going to come before the market opens. We have the GDP numbers coming out, and this could possibly lead to yields going up. If yields increase because of these GDP numbers, this could cause the stock market to slow down for Thursday. So there could be a bull trap coming for tomorrow. So just be very careful. We could see the market pump and then close quite green tomorrow, but for Thursday, things could change after Jerome Powell gives his speech, and retail investors don't have much time, right? They're not going to be able to trade in between Powell's speech and when the GDP numbers come out before the market open on Thursday. So during that duration of time, this is when some manipulation could happen, and this could lead to something completely different. We also have the PCE data quarter over quarter coming out. So lots of important data is coming out. So Thursday is going to be a big day. We will see how this ends up going. So I just wanted to warn you about this, and that's what could end up playing out. Now let's look at the technicals. How are things looking for now? So far, things are looking quite decent. The market is still holding up. We're not seeing SPY breaking below 420, and we saw a lot of buyers step in for today. Even during the after hours, we saw SPY make a new high, hitting 425. However, in the process of doing so, SPY established a bearish divergence. You can see right here, there's a bearish divergence on the RSI and the MACD. So we might see a little cool off in the morning. The market may cool off just a little bit. We could see SPY revisit for the 422s, but then when we start or get very close to open, we might see the market start to push up. And I think there's a good chance SPY could be seeing 426 very soon. Now, 426 is going to be a key resistance. That's where the 200 EMA is going to be. If SPY breaks this, we could see this thing go up to 428, if not 430 plus, to start filling some of these imbalances. Today, we saw SPY go from 420 to 425. It is most definitely possible for this thing to push about 6 or 7 points in just one day, especially after some decent earnings. So these imbalances could push this thing towards 430 if we do get a big break above 426. So watch for that. Now, even if we do pump approaching Jerome Powell's speech, which is going to be after market close tomorrow, things could change on Thursday. So just be very careful. So watch these levels very carefully tomorrow. Look for a little drop towards 422. We have to hold 422. If we fell at 422, watch 420 as critical support. If 420 fails us, 418 is the next support below that. But I don't think SPY is going to drop that low. I think we may retrace a little bit, and we're going to see some buyers stepping in either like right now, if not by, I would say, tomorrow in the morning. And we should see 422 to 420 being defended. Then the market should start pushing upwards, and we're going to be watching these resistance levels, 423.5, and then we have 425 above that as the next key zone. If it breaks, you're going to be watching 426.25 or very close to the 200 EMA. If we get above 426, okay, there's going to be potential for this thing to push all the way up to 428. And if we break that, we're going to 430 plus, okay? So that's a real possibility for tomorrow. My best prediction would be like a drop and a pop. And this could happen approaching Jerome Powell's speech, but be careful afterwards. Now for Tesla has a bearish divergence that is not a bearish divergence, but a potential bearish trend right here because Tesla rejected off the 20 EMA. So there's a gap down here at 212. There's a risk that Tesla might come down to fill this gap at 212. And then we might see Tesla bounce between 210 and 212. So a little retracement is possible. Then we might see buyers step in and push Tesla back up above 220. That is what I'm predicting. So look for a little drop on Tesla before this thing sees buyers stepping in. And we might see the market pump approaching Jerome Powell's speech. So we might see the same thing for tomorrow on Tesla. Tesla may come down towards this support down here at this 215 area. If we lose it, like I said before, 212 is a real possibility. We haven't filled the gap just yet. That's down here. We might fill this gap and then bounce very close to 212, if not 210. Then buyers could come in and push this thing right back up towards 220. That's a real possibility. So we're going to be watching those levels. And also, by the way, when it comes to levels, 215 is going to be our supports, 212, 210, and then 208 are some key supports. For resistance, you want to be watching 216.8. If that breaks, there's going to be some resistance around this 218 area, 220, 222.5, and then 225 above that. Once again, my best prediction would be a little drop in the morning, then a bounce, and we should see some buyers try to step in. Earnings have not been bad whatsoever so far. We're getting some good earnings from Microsoft and also Google. It's just that the share price of Google is still exaggerating on the drop. For Nvda, we established a bearish divergence. Let me show you what this looks like. So on the 30 minutes time frame, we have a bearish divergence right here. Right here, you can see the RSI started declining right here. and this is a decline relative to this previous high from the pre-market in the morning. That tells me that we might see Nvidia cool off a little bit. We might see Nvidia come down towards 431 or so, maybe even 430. There might be a little drop coming, but the buyers should step in, try to defend once again, and we may see this thing just bounce and start pumping later on. So if we do end up dropping, you're going to be watching some critical support at 432, and that's where this previous wick was. If we lose 432, we're going to be watching 430, and if that fails us, we have potential to come all the way down towards 425 all over again. So somewhere around 425 to 430, I think some buyers should step in again. We might see Nvidia drop a bit, and then buyers should try to push it right back up. And if that's the case, we could be establishing an inverse head and shoulders, and we could see buyers eventually push it back up to 440 plus. But it may come down first and then bounce, so watch for that move very, very carefully. If we manage to break 438 from the get-go, then we could see this thing go up to about 440. If that breaks, it's going to be on its way up to 444 up next. So watch those levels. I think the most likely possibility is a drop and a bounce. Looking at the QQQ, I'm seeing the same thing because the triple Q ended up establishing a bearish divergence right here. I have my QQQ chart. Where is it? It's right here. So on the 30 minutes time frame, we have a bearish divergence that has developed. With this basically occurring, QQQ is looking a little weak right now. We might see it cool off towards 355 to 356. I think right there, some buyers should step in, try to defend, and push it right back up towards 360. That's the move I'm looking for. I think we may see a slight pullback, but then intraday tomorrow, some buyers could come back and push us up approaching Powell's speech. So for the QQQ, you're going to be watching our support at 357.5. If we lose that, you're going to be watching support at 356. And if that fails us, there's 355, 354, 353.5. Those are some key supports. Now, for resistance, we have 358. Above that, there's 359, 360, 361.69, and 362.5. I think we may cool off a little bit, just a little bit more towards 356, if not 355. Then buyers should step in and push this right back up towards 361. And I think it may even break 361.69 this time around. And we could be watching for a push all the way up to at least 362. Now, the first move may be like some downside. We may see a little cool off first, and then buyers could push this right back up tomorrow. That's the most likely possibility, as the inverse head and shoulders is still valid. Last but not least, I think I went over Tesla, SPY, QQQ, and I think I went over almost everything except for Aapl on TradingView. For Aapl, I'm seeing the same thing basically. The whole market is just moving in a very similar algorithm. So for Aapl, I have it right here. On the 30 minutes time frame, Aapl established a bearish divergence right here. You could see the RSI was in this decline right here, and that's despite the fact that the price made this new high. So we might see Aapl retrace towards, it may retrace towards 172.5, maybe even 172. We could see a slight drop, and then we should see buyers step in around that 172 area and push this right back up towards 174.5 in my opinion. So a drop and a bounce is very possible, as we still have this inverse head and shoulders and it has not been validated just yet, and there is still potential for it. So look for a little drop and bounce, and that could end up dictating the whole market. Now for Aapl, watch 172 very carefully and 172.6 as two supports. If we lose 172, then that could turn even more bearish. We could come down closer to like 171.5, then 170 below that. For resistance, watch 173.5. If we break that, watch 174, 174.5, then 175 above that. My guts tells me it's going to drop a little bit, then buyers will step in and push it right back up, and we're going to see a pump approaching Jerome Powell's speech. And I don't know if Powell's going to cause a rug pull, but I think that this is the most likely move, at least approaching his speech. We'll see how the technicals look approaching his speech, if he's going to cause some kind of rug pull or the news for Thursday. So I just wanted to warn you about that. Anyways, I'm going to be very brief for the ending of this video. When it comes to SoFi, hold on a second. When it comes to SoFi, right now it's looking kind of decent. It's been performing differently from the markets. I'm going to be looking for a little pop. It could actually retest 7.5, then drop afterwards. But I think that buyers will eventually step in and try to get it closer to this 200 EMA at 7.6. So a little pop, a little drop, and then a push up towards 7.64 as possible. We also have this inverse head and shoulders on it on the 30 minutes time frame. So there could be a bounce coming. It may start off kind of weak with a pop and drop and then eventually bounce. The IWM has some more potential. I think it may cool off a bit, then start popping and try to push up towards this imbalance at 167 very, very soon. I think we're going to retest 167 plus. For Microsoft, it's currently looking quite good. We're up 3%, trying to test this 340 area. We have some resistance at 350 and 352. If we get above 352, watch 355 and then 360. Microsoft has some good buyers stepping in, and this could help the market hold up. We're going to be watching these key resistance levels. We have some key resistance at 340, which is this previous resistance right here. If we break this, it could get very close to 345, and then we want to see it get close to at least 350 to hold up a lot better. So we're going to be watching these levels going into tomorrow. For AMD, we have a nice accumulation structure right here. We closed above 101, which is a good sign. Look for a little cool off because it also pumped with the market. So it pumped and formed a bearish divergence. So it's going to cool off a little bit more. We could see it retest 100.5 to 101 or between this range. Then buyers could step in and push it towards 102.5. For something else such as the VIX is continuing to look very weak, but I would say that the 30-minute time frame is approaching some support. So we're approaching the 200 EMA. We might see the VIX kind of bounce a little bit because the market may retrace a tiny bit in the morning, and then the VIX may reject and just continue to sell off as the market bounces. So we could see a nice balance because the VIX has a potential head and shoulders developing, and there could be more downside for it. It may make an attempt to bounce just initially off this 200 EMA, but then there could be more downside thanks to the head and shoulders later on. So a bounce because the market may cool off a tiny bit more, right? This may bounce a little bit, and then this may start cooling off later on because the market may pump approaching Jerome Powell's speech. Looking at the dollar index, this thing is looking kind of flat right now, kind of shopping around the 106s. I could see this making an attempt to break out a little bit more. We might see the dollar pop a bit, then cool off. Maybe it's because of the market potentially cooling off too. Before bouncing, Coinbase got a very, very nice accumulation right here. Looks quite decent. I would say that with this massive pump it got, it's cooling off a little bit. We could retest 81.5. If we lose that, it's going to come down towards a 78. If we hold it, we could bounce later on and get back up towards this imbalance at 88. So we're going to be watching a retest of 81.5 and a bounce, and we'll see if that holds. Now for Google, completely exaggerated drop. It's currently at 131. I think it's going to try to bounce and rebound towards 132.5 soon, but it just doesn't make sense. It should not be down that much. Earnings was quite strong. Only one little sector was kind of weak. Amazon is down alongside Google. We're going to be watching this support at 127. If it bounces off here, it could get a retest of 130. Now we have a nice inverse head and shoulders like structure on Amazon. So we might see Amazon retrace towards 127. If that fails, let's watch 126.5 and 125. As long as it holds above 125, the inverse head and shoulders could be valid, and we could see Amazon pump even more for higher levels approaching its earnings. For Meta, it's down a little bit, but this is going to be the day before its earnings going into tomorrow. So we're going to be watching this potentially retrace towards 306 all over again, then make an attempt to bounce. If it doesn't bounce off 306, could be retesting some lower levels. It is possible it comes even lower towards 305 and then 300 before this thing ends up bouncing. So could be forming like a double bottom here at this 305 area. Maybe it comes down to 305 to 306. Then buyers try to push it up to 312 all over again. So I'm seeing some potential for the market to drop a little bit. There could be some retracing that happens, but then the buyers should step in intraday tomorrow to try to pump SPY and these different stocks. That's the most likely possibility based off technical analysis. And we may see a pump approaching Jerome Powell's speech. Powell gives his speech after the market closes, so we'll see what Powell causes. And then don't forget about Thursday because we have the GDP numbers coming out that could change everything by the time the market opens for Thursday. So I think that's the most likely possibility. Thank you all so much for listening. I'll see you guys in the next one. Market to the moon because the long term is still incredibly bright. And peace out.